Hello and welcome to my second video doing spoiler talks for book 2 in The Wandering Inn by Pirate Harbour. This is going to be a full-on spoiler filled video from chapter 2.05 to chapter 2.10, 2.10. I think that's where we're up to. Is that where I'm up to? Yes, that's where I'm up to. So if you've not read book 1, if you've not started book 2 in this series, don't watch this video because I'm going to spoil the stuff out of this book. Going to be full on spoilers. I've made plenty of notes I'm going to be looking at on my iPad. If you're not up to here, bookmark it, save it, come back when you are up to speed. But this is going to be full on spoilers for book 2 of The Wandering Inn by Pirate Harbour, starting in 3, 2, 1, go. So where we left off was the characters had just left the ruins of Liscort, and Ghazi was outside and she'd stabbed Captain Zavara. Now, we carry on here where Relk decides to attack Ghazi, but as soon as he did that, I thought that's probably not a really good idea, especially when he yelled just as he was going to go and do it. It's one of those things where if you're going to go and attack someone, don't shout in advance to warn them that you're coming. But then again, this is Ghazi, so I'm pretty sure whether he yelled, whether he was silent, she'd have spotted it anyway because she's got eyes everywhere. She can see everything that's going on. So needless to say, Relk's attack wasn't successful. He ends up getting cut in the arm, and the others then start to attack Ghazi as well. And she, none of them can lay a blade on her. None of them can touch her. Pisces almost gets an arrow in his spuds. It's a polite way to put it. And Ghazi ends up slapping Erin to the face. And the scroll that she had initially, turns out that's a teleportation scroll. And as the others were regathering to attack Ghazi again, Ghazi does this weird, she's got 5 eyes. It's that weird 5-eyed eye roll and says, "My lord gave me this armour that I might walk through the bloody battlefield for him." Which, okay, I'm wondering who her lord is. But then there's a howling, and it's the Knolls. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't do the audio book, so I apologise if my pronunciation for these words is a bit off. And the Knolls then come charging to help, and there's quite a few of them. And at this point, I'm thinking, well, is Captain Zavara dead, by the way? Because I've not heard anything more about it. I've not seen anyone tending. Is it he or she, Zavara? Anyway, not seen anyone giving like first aid or anything like that. So in my mind, I'm thinking Captain Zavara's dead. Everyone's attacking Ghazi, and none of them can lay a blade on her. Ryoka gets hit with an arrow, and then there's a strange exchange between Ghazi, Keshia, and I'm going to mispronounce these, Keshia and Seria. And it comes across to me that Seria and Ghazi have a past, and I think this might have been hinted at in book 1, but I'm not quite sure what that is, or if that got explained and if I've forgot about it. But Keshia wants Erin, but it can't just be because they're friends, because why has she come from with all the other Knolls? Why have they all come? If it's just because, like, she's just said, "It's my friend, can we go and help?" And how did she know they were in trouble? I don't know. Why would the others all risk their lives for something like that, especially after they just survived the battle? So anyway, Ryoka tells Ghazi about the King of Destruction, and this causes Ghazi to be distracted, meaning Erin can then poke Ghazi in the eye and burst her eyeball. I mean, that's pretty disgusting, really, isn't it? Now, up until this point, I thought Ghazi, Erin and Ryoka would end up teaming up somehow, and this teleportation thing, I thought they'd be going through that together. I was thinking that's how the story was going to progress, but then when you burst someone's eyeball, that's not the best way to team up with them. So the injury to her eye means that she can't react as quick, and she starts taking injuries. Before saying, "Erin Solstice, one day we shall meet again." Not quite, "I'll be back," like the Terminator says, but it's getting there. And no doubt she'll just be as fearsome and as dangerous as the Terminator was in the film. But then she steps into the portal and she disappears. Turns out Captain Zavara survived, don't know how, and then winter arrives, like that, with some fairies that can talk. The next chapter starts with Magnolia, and she's talking to an assassin called Theophor, and he was reporting what he saw in relation to Ghazi and the attack that was happening outside the ruins. Magnolia refers to Ghazi as one of the King of Destruction's most fearsome warriors, and I'm quite sure she is, but one of. So I'm guessing there's plenty more like Ghazi, maybe even more powerful than that if she's just one of the King of Destruction's most fearsome warriors. And then they then talk about the winter fairies and refer to them as sprites and frost fairies. So I'm thinking, what are these things actually called? Are they fairies? Are they frost fairies? Are they sprites? What are they? I've got it in my mind kind of what they look like, but I just wish, at this point I'm thinking, can you just settle down on what we're calling them? We then end up going back, changing point of view. We're back in the Wandering Inn with Erin and Ryoka, and Ryoka is having a bit of a strop, and she's smashing up the chairs in the inn. She's swearing a lot because Zavara has confiscated everything from the ruins. Erin and Ryoka discuss teaming up and working together and start sharing information whilst they're playing chess. And it's interesting how chess seems to be this thing, how people bond, and there's good character moments and character interactions over games of chess. They have a bit of an argument in relation to Rags. Torrin comes back after being outside looking for some food, and Ryoka mentions that she has to deliver a letter and a ring that's in a belt pouch. Now, I can't remember what these are. I can't remember the relevance for this. Did she get these from, in book 1, when I can't even remember what the character was called. Some old man, but was possibly a dragon. Is that? I can't remember what that character was, but is that where she got the ring and this parchment from? And I can't remember who she's got to go and deliver it to, or why. Anyway, I'm quite sure that'll come make more sense later on. But then they end up talking about what the information they know of the world that they're in, and they discuss that the gods are dead. There's 5 continents, and there was 6 in the past, and now there's only 5. I don't quite know what happened to the 6th one, but the continent that they're on, where the story is at the minute, where the Wandering Inn is and where Liscor is the most peaceful, and is the 3rd largest. It's called Israel. Am I pronouncing that right? Then there's another one called Terandria, which is a continent of humans. Another one where Ghazi's from. I don't know if I've captured the name for that. There's one further north, which is a dead continent, with an alliance of nations fighting against possibly demons. And then the final continent as a huge desert. But the most important thing of all this, and one thing that I don't think you get in most fantasy books, is the size of the actual world. So they've said that the world in this book is 3 times bigger than Earth. Now, in terms of like scale and scope, that's huge, absolutely huge. You know, if you were telling a story based on Earth and you were on a continent and you were trying to then maybe find other people, other humans who might know more information about how you can do stuff or whatever, a planet the size of Earth is big enough. 3 times bigger? Imagine how big those continents are. So the continent of North America on our world, it's going to be, what's that going to be, twice the size on this world, continents of that size? It's mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing, the size and scale of it all. Next chapter is Ryoka wondering where they'll go and what they'll do now that they know there's other people in the world. Now, I was wondering at the time, why do you need to actually do anything? I get that you need to go and you might want to work out how you're going to go home, but it's such a big place. Why is it down to you to do something? Are there not other people? Are there not other people looking to do something, and they might find you if you're not the only one? I was thinking about The Walking Dead. If you've ever watched that TV program, where you think you're the only people in the world alive, and everywhere else is zombies, and then as you go around, you find lots of little settlements of people. all doing their own thing, and they would end up finding you anyway. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there about The Walking Dead, but that's what I was thinking of, and that was the comparison I was making. And she ends up leaving and starts to run towards the town, but she ends up getting followed by the ice fairies, and they start teasing her, and it's described as hundreds of them. So, in my mind, with these ice fairies, winter sprites, winter fairies, ice sprites, whatever they're called. An ice sprite sounds like a nice cold drink to have right now, actually. I'm wondering how many there actually are. If they're sweeping in and they're spreading winter across the land, then how many does there need to be? Are there like millions of them? Are there just hundreds, thousands, or what? Because if they're going to cover winter across a continent, you'd expect there to be tons and tons of them. But anyway, there's hundreds here. Most leave, but some of them follow Ryoka, which leaves Erin alone in the inn. But she ends up leveling up to level 2 warrior class and gets a skill of lesser endurance. Now, lesser endurance, I'm presuming that's like in role-playing games where you have, say, I can remember like with like lesser healing potions or greater healing potions. I'm presuming it means it's like the lesser skill of endurance, and there's another level of endurance to go up. So Pisces arrives and ends up talking about Ryoka and says that the winter sprites don't enter buildings. Erin seems to like these fairies, sprites, ice creatures, and stays outside looking at them until one of them ends up spitting in her eye. And it seems like only Erin and Ryoka can see them, because Pisces can't. He just describes them as magical phenomena. So that's quite interesting in terms of only Erin and Ryoka can see them, because they're the only people not from that world. So I'm thinking, well, this is going to be a way you're going to be able to spot someone else. Now, it's not the best way to spot someone else from your world. You have to wait till winter and then watch everyone to see if they can see some sprites. But I'm storing that away in my mind as a little plot point where they might be able to find somebody else from their world. And the fairies also seem confused as to why Erin can see them and Pisces can't. So Pisces ends up using a firefly spell to try and get rid of the fairies. And the fairies can overcome this spell. They end up freezing Pisces. And this is just after or just before when Erin starts to flatter them. And they talk back to Erin and they mention Calibrum. They'd be interested in Calibrum. And the fairies are shocked that Erin doesn't know the old tales. Now, I'm guessing these sprites and these fairies could almost be seen as just like some, I don't know, small-time irritating pest of a creature. But just from this initial introduction to them and this interaction, these are going to be old creatures from a long time ago in the past. And there's a whole lot of exploration, I think, to be done with these creatures, these sprites, which I think is going to have like long-reaching consequences to this story as it goes along. And that's what I love about this. It's like something that you might just think is just like a small throwaway thing or just a plot device maybe, but I don't think it is. I think there's going to be so much backstory to what's going on here. So the fairies end up going off to leave, but not before they've caused some kind of mini avalanche and like trapped Erin and Pisces in the inn. Next chapter is Ryoka has managed to get to Selim. Again, sorry about the pronunciation. With the frost fairies who end up bringing winter with them to this place. And she ends up going into the Runners Guild where she meets Fals and Garia. Now, I had a bit of trouble trying to remember who exactly these were. Am I right that Garia was like her friend in book 1? And Fals, was he partly responsible for teaming up with that other woman who ended up causing Ryoka that really bad leg injury? I wasn't 100% sure, and I'm still not, to be fair. Anyway, they end up start talking, and it's mentioned that there's a special request being brought by courier from First Landing. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking King's Landing from Game of Thrones as soon as I heard that. If I end up saying King's Landing, I mean First Landing. And they say that First Landing is the largest city on this side of the continent. They talk about magical items and powerful items that Ryoka could buy, and she mentions wanting to be a courier, but then they explain to her that if she doesn't level up, then she can never reach that level. And they go on to explain that with the rate that the others are progressing in terms of their skills, that Garia will be able to outrun Ryoka soon if Ryoka doesn't level up. And I think this is a bit of a wake-up call, because there's been quite a few, hasn't there, with Ryoka so far, in terms of the fact that she's chosen not to level up, not to play this game. But I think it's going to dawn on her soon that she's going to have to, because people are going to outdo her, get better than her, and she's not going to be as good or as special as she thinks she is right now. So Magnolia is at her residence 300 miles north, and First Landing is nearly 4,000 miles north. Now that gives a massive scope in terms of the size of the continent. And again, Ryoka, it's like a slap across the face. It's like she just had a. You're not going to be as good as her if you don't level up. You can't run that far because this continent's huge. So Garia takes Ryoka to go and see an alchemist called Octavia, who starts to try and force Ryoka into buying some potions. Ryoka obviously refuses because she's no pushover. And she ends up pushing up Octavia's arms. And one of her arms falls off. And it's explained that Octavia is one of the string people made out of fabric. Right, okay. String people made out of fabric. We've also got sprites, ice fairies as well. It's throwing a lot at you in this book so far. You're only a very short way into this book and there's a lot of new stuff being thrown at you. Anyway, Octavia examines the potion of Ryoka's and is blown away by the standard and quality of it. She won't give the potion back. Tries to barter a deal with Ryoka until, in typical Ryoka fashion, she demands it back or she will inflict physical pain and violence on her. Chapter 2.09 brings us back to Erin, and she wakes up freezing cold inside her inn and eventually manages to get a fire started. She finds out that Torrent has been following orders and has been shoveling the snow outside all night because that's what he was told to do, but he's blocked the door to the inn. So much so, it's actually blocked the wind and the cold getting through, but it now means Erin can't get out. She orders him to move it and also to go and get firewood while she goes off to Liscar. So on getting to Liscar and eating some fried meat that's being cooked on these braziers in the marketplace, I think it was, she goes to Crishia's, I think I'm saying that right, shop to try and get some warm clothing. But whilst at the Adventurers Guild, Erin talks to Celis, who asks if it's true the King of Destruction has woken, and we find out that the King of Destruction is also a human. Erin talks to her about the fact that she's upgraded her class. She's now got the Warrior Level 2 class, and they talk about how she's got it. And it's described to us because it's the first time she went looking for a fight. Therefore, it must all be about purpose. But so that if you might end up in a, I don't know, you might end up in some kind of brawl or fight or something. But if you actually go looking for something, looking to go and get into a fight in some way, that is what increases your level or your skill. But she's unsure why she's advanced so quickly in the innkeeping class. But then they end up going to another inn, like a really popular inn, and they meet an innkeeper there called Peslas. He's a drake, and Erin gets to see a busy inn in action in real life. On talking to Peslas, she's told that there's a level 40 innkeeper at First Landing, while Peslas himself is only a level 30. And there's a bit of more backstory told about the Wandering Inn itself, that there used to be a human who ran it before Erin, and that there used to be a small village in and around the inn before the necromancer now destroyed things. Now I'm sure this has been mentioned again in book 1. It might have been very, very early on, mention of a small village and some necromancer. And I don't know if it was expanded on anymore in terms of who that necromancer was and what happened that to cause them to destroy the village. But I think he mentions as well about the undead. There was a necromancer and the undead, and that all destroyed the village around the inn. They end up then going seeing Olisum and Seria, who are both recuperating from their injuries, and her arm, that I struggled to picture and envisage in my previous video, is described as yellow bones and blackened skin. So I'm guessing the arm has healed a little bit, the bones are yellow and the skin is black. So does that mean skin is growing back a bit on her arm? But how can she see the bones? How can you see the bones? If that's all bones and the bones are yellow, but the skin is black, again, I'm just picturing just bone. In my mind, it's just a skeleton hand at this moment in time. So Erin goes back to Krishia to get her clothes, but the prices all got up. But then these names, Klubak and Relk appear, and they end up mentioning that her inner's blown up. So chapter 2.10 was a really big surprise, because this is a chapter from the point of view from Torren. And I really like this chapter. This is the favourite one of the book so far for me, because you get so much insight into him. So he can hear this voice telling him to go south, to rise and obey. Now, I don't know who this person is. Is this Floss, the King of Destruction? Is this another Skinner type character? Is this the Necromancer who destroyed the village around the Wandering Inn initially? Who knows? I'm sure this will all get explained in due time, all in good time. But he gets frustrated at not being able to complete tasks set by Erin and always getting them wrong. And we find out he doesn't see by normal sight, but just by being aware of things around the world. And that he senses this through shape and movement. They also mention that he can understand any language. He's got to obey and protect Erin. I think it mentions he has to obey Pisces as well, because Pisces created him. And that when the undead attacked, he was worried that Erin would replace him with a ghoul, a zombie, or another skeleton. Which is a bit cute, really, isn't it? You know, scared of being replaced, being traded in for a newer, fresher model. Mentions he gets magic and mana from Erin. Now, I don't know if has this been mentioned before? So can all the undead get mana from living things, or is it just Torren? Is that something Pisces has crafted into him so he can regenerate and get everything he needs from people? Or is it just Erin? Is that why he's tied to Erin? Because he gets the mana from her. Although I think he mentions Ryoka and he can get more from her, so maybe that's not the case. But anyway, it's interesting. So this is talking a little bit about what we've already just seen, really. Because he gets told to go and dig the door clear so Erin can get out, but then also to go and get wood from a tree. And he ends up going off on this big long trek to try and hack down one of them blue fruit trees, and he can't do that. And then he keeps on going and going and going and going, after falling into like pits of spiders and all kinds of stuff. And he comes to those exploding trees and chops some of that off, drags it all the way back to the inn, and puts it in the fire. Lights it, and boom, because I think they refer to the trees as the boom trees. Boom, it explodes and it destroys. It doesn't exactly go into how much, but it's destroyed quite a bit at the inn. Erin comes back just as Torren's kind of like coming around and getting himself back together again. She's absolutely devastated and tells Torren to go away. And I was feeling really bad for Torren at this point. Really, really bad. So again, he's got to obey what she says. So he doesn't know where to go or for how long, because he's starting questioning things. And he's thinking it through in his mind, and he's thinking he's got to level up, he's got to improve so he can stop getting things wrong and stop messing up. But he can hear that voice in his head which is saying, "Rise once more from the darkness, come to me, my eternal army. Gather and know your time of return is at hand." Again, who is this? I don't know. Are these them, what were them things called with Skinner? Not Skinner, but Chaos Lords? No, what were they called? Can't remember. Is it them? No idea. I'm thinking it's Floss. Floss, or someone from Floss, is calling all the undead, which is where they've gone from the ruins, which is why when they all went down there earlier, they'd all gone because they're going to this new mysterious person. But then you can start hearing the Somewhere Over the Rainbow song. I think, is that what Erin sang in book 1? when the horns of Hammerad and all that were there in the inn, and she started singing the songs, and they could all kind of hear this music. I don't think it was ever clarified as to how they could hear this music and like the instruments, because that's the way it was written. But he's got that in his head and he can't stop hearing it. So he decides he needs to level up, get stronger, better, and decides to go back to the inn, but then ends up falling through a hole into some ruins. And when he's into this, like, sounds to me like a bit of a labyrinth almost on the ground. And there's a giant armed soldier which has kind of got no head. He's got his head tucked under its arm like this, I think. And then Torrhen reaches in, gets this jewel that he got from Skinner, which I totally forgot about, puts it behind his eye sockets, and then, I can't remember, does it go towards it? Anyway, that's where the chapter ends basically. He's stored it in his head, puts it behind his eye sockets, but what does that do? Is that going to give him some extra powers to control the undead? Maybe that's what it does, because is that how Skinner was able to control the ball? I don't know. Is Torrhen going to use this for good? Is he going to gather like a whole army himself and be the leader of some army? Undead army? No idea. But so far, there is so much teed up and hinted at in this book. And yeah, looking forward to carrying on with it. Let me know what you think. Don't spoil anything for me. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye. Summer, you're going to have to go through. You can't be snoring. Go through. Summer, through. Go on. There you go. I'm not having you snoring. I'm doing this. Go on. Sorry.